Let's dive right in.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Dentist's Coffee Time. I'm so glad you could join me. Today we're going to get into something really fascinating, something at the very heart of what we do. What actually makes a smile genuinely beautiful. It's so much more than just having bright white teeth, right? The real magic lies in balance, in harmony, and in these sort of hidden geometric rules that our brains are just instinctively wired to recognize and appreciate. We're going to explore the core principles that separate a good smile from a truly great one, all grounded in the science of facial aesthetics.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the big picture, the quest for harmony. Then we're going to unpack the one fundamental rule that honestly trumps all the others, the incredible power of horizontal lines. After that, we'll tackle the facial midline, bust some old myths, and get a clear definition. We'll also peek inside the modern dentist toolkit to see how these ideas are put into practice. And then we'll really put it all to the test with the ultimate challenge, facial asymmetry. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a clear aesthetic philosophy that you can actually use. So let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the quest for harmony. We've all seen it, right? You look at someone's smile, and something just feels a little off. You might not even be able to put your finger on why. And then, on the other hand, you see a smile that just fits the person's face so perfectly. It looks natural, balanced, totally captivating. So what's the secret sauce? What are these invisible rules that make all the difference? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
And that really brings us to the key question for this whole explainer. And I want you to really think about this for a second. If you had to pick just one thing, what would you say is the absolute most crucial element for creating that sense of balance in a smile? Is it the shape of the teeth? The color? Is it a perfectly centered midline? Keep that question in the back of your mind, because I think the answer might surprise you.
To answer that question, we need to talk about horizontal lines. And look, if you only take one thing away from our chat today, this is it. This is the absolute foundation of everything. It's the one unshakable, non-negotiable law in the world of facial aesthetics. It's a principle so deep inside our perception that our brains are literally hardwired to notice it, even when we don't realize we're doing it.
This slide right here, this is a total game changer in aesthetic thinking. For so long, the focus in dentistry was all about getting that perfectly centered midline, but it turns out that's not the main event. The real secret is horizontal balance. Think of it like you're building a house. The horizontal plane is your strong, level foundation. It has to be perfect. It provides what's called a cohesive force. It pulls the whole picture together, making everything look stable and correct. The facial midline, well, that's like the front door. It's important, for sure. But if the foundation of your house is crooked, it doesn't matter how perfectly centered that door is. The whole house is going to look wrong. A crooked smile actually creates a dispersive force, a visual distraction that makes things feel, well, chaotic. The key takeaway is simple but so powerful. Get the horizontal plane right first. Everything else comes second.
And this just says it all, doesn't it? This is probably the most important sentence in this entire explainer, so I really want to let it sink in. A deviation in the facial midline is secondary. The most important thing is the parallelism of the horizontal line. Let's think about what that means in the real world. It means a smile that is perfectly level but has a midline that's maybe a millimeter or two off-center will almost always look more beautiful and harmonious than a smile with a perfect midline that's tilted. The power of that horizontal stability is just that strong in our brains.
So why is this rule so powerful? Well, it comes down to basic human biology. Our brains crave horizontal alignment as a reference point for stability. Imagine you're looking at a photo of a building. If that building is even slightly tilted, your brain immediately screams that something is wrong. Your internal, unwavering reference is the horizon, the flat line of the ground. It's the same exact instinct when we look at a human face. A tilted smile creates that same subconscious feeling of imbalance. But a smile that runs perfectly parallel to the horizon, that feels stable, calm, and right. It creates a sense of harmony that we are literally programmed to appreciate.
Okay, so we've firmly established that the horizontal line is king. Now let's give its partner, the facial midline, the attention it deserves. Because while it is secondary, it's still a really critical piece of a beautiful smile. But it's a concept that's been surrounded by a lot of confusion and some pretty outdated ideas for a long time. So it's time we move past those old myths and find the true center.
If you were to crack open some older textbooks on aesthetics, you'd find the definition of the facial midline was, well, it was surprisingly fuzzy. For decades, the most common advice was to just follow the midline of the nose. But there is a huge, glaring problem with that. I mean, think about it. How many people do you know with a perfectly straight nose?
Between deviated septums, old injuries, or just how we grow, using the nose as a reliable guide is a total gamble. It's an unstable landmark. Thankfully, the modern approach is based on much more stable and predictable points on the face.
And here it is, the modern accepted definition. The true facial midline is an imaginary vertical line that runs from a point called the glabella, that's the smooth spot on your forehead right between your eyebrows, down to the center of the Cupid's bow on your upper lip. And the reason this is so much better is because these 2 points are way more stable and less likely to be thrown off by asymmetry or trauma compared to the nose. This gives us a consistent, repeatable, and anatomically solid reference point.
So now we have our 2 core principles, the absolute power of the horizontal line and the true definition of the vertical midline. The next logical question is, well, how do we apply this in a practical, repeatable way? Let's open up the modern dentist toolkit and look at the technique that brings these principles together so beautifully.
This is a brilliantly simple and super effective technique called the T effect, and it perfectly demonstrates our core principle in action. Let's walk through it. First, you identify the center of the pupils. Then, you draw that strong horizontal line connecting them. That's the interpupillary line. That becomes your primary reference, your foundation. Only after you have that stable horizontal line do you find its exact midpoint and drop a perfect 90-degree vertical line straight down. You can see the T shape it makes. The horizontal bar of the T defines the vertical line, not the other way around. It's a perfect visual of the hierarchy we've been talking about. Establish the horizontal first, then use it to define the secondary vertical element.
So we've covered the rules for a relatively symmetrical face, where everything lines up pretty nicely. But what happens when the very foundation of the face itself is skewed? This is where our understanding of these core principles is really put to the test. Let's tackle the ultimate aesthetic challenge. What do we do in cases of significant facial asymmetry?
Okay, so imagine this scenario. A patient comes to see you and you notice their eyes are not on the same level. One is clearly a bit higher than the other. This means their interpupillary line, that line connecting their pupils, is visibly tilted. Now you have the job of designing their new smile. The million-dollar question is, how should you align the edges of their front teeth? What becomes your guide?
Let's really break down the options here. Option A. Do you make the smile parallel to their tilted eyes, basically just following and matching their natural asymmetry? Option B. Do you completely ignore their tilted eyes and instead make the smile perfectly parallel to the ground, the true horizon? Or option C. Do you try to get creative and compensate by angling the smile in the opposite direction? Take a second and think about everything we've covered. Which choice follows our #1 rule?
If you said B, you are absolutely correct. The answer is to align the new smile so that it is parallel to the ground, the true horizon. Now, let's explore exactly why that is the right call.
So why is this the right answer? It all comes back to that tilted building analogy. Every single person who looks at this patient, you, me, their family, perceives them against the backdrop of a level world. Our brain's internal gyroscope is always set to the horizon. Now, in a symmetrical face, the line between the eyes is a great shortcut for the horizon. But in this challenging case, the eyes are a false guide. They're already tilted. If you were to make the smile also tilted to match the eyes, you would just be adding another crooked line to the mix. You'd be creating more visual chaos. But by making the smile perfectly parallel to the ground, you introduce a point of stability. It becomes a strong, level, cohesive anchor in the picture that actually counteracts the asymmetry, calming the whole image down and making the face feel more balanced and harmonious overall.
Okay, let's bring everything we've talked about today together into a clear, actionable philosophy. These are the key takeaways that should form the foundation of your new perspective on aesthetic analysis, creating what we can call our aesthetic compass.
So let's recap the 4 points of our new aesthetic compass. Rule #1, and the most important of all, horizontal is king. Your primary goal is always to create a smile that is parallel to the true horizon. Rule #2, the midline is secondary. It's an important refinement, but you should never, ever sacrifice horizontal balance just for a perfect midline. Rule #3, the T effect is your best friend for putting this into practice reliably. And finally, rule #4, when you're faced with those really challenging cases of asymmetry, always trust the ground. It is your ultimate, unchanging guide even if it contradicts other landmarks on the face. If you can master these 4 rules, you've mastered the very foundation of creating facial harmony.
So we've spent our time today focused on the essential geometric rules that create balance and harmony. But we all know there's more to a beautiful smile than just lines and angles. So I want to leave you with one final, more philosophical question to think about. Beyond all of these geometric rules, what single quality do you believe truly defines a beautiful smile? Is it confidence? Is it authenticity? Warmth? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments section below.
Thanks for watching. This is Dentist Coffee Time. Bye-bye.